So thank you all for joining. And here we are. Okay, I don't know where. Okay, so I can see you and you can see me, I think. And hopefully the others who had joined live before the interruption will join. Today I have chosen a few suttas on spiritual friendship. We just posted the link. I'm glad people are coming back. Thank you. We just I posted the link to one of the suttas, and but I'm going to speak about two others, three others that are related in some way. But they are talking about the importance of what's the Kalyanamitta, but there's also the Sapurisa, which is the true person. So if our friends, our spiritual friends, are true people, just a real important aids to the path. So I'm going to pin here. Okay, there. So I'm going to start out with the sutta that was listed, which is called Sariputta. And I'll start the screen share. Can you all see that? So this is in the Samyutta Nikaya, and it's a link discourses on the path, the Magga Samyutta. And this is number 3 in the Magga Samyutta. You can see 45.3. So 45 is the Magga Samyutta. Collected discourses on the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so somehow we navigated away from the sutta we were going to look at. Anyway, you could see how Sutta Central works. It's quite a wonderful Bhante Sujato's contribution to. So you see where there's 2 translations. I've chosen Bhante Sujato's translation. And this is wonderful because it has both the Pali. You can go up to the upper section here. I can't see it, but there's an I in the upper section, and then you can get views, and then you click on Pali English. There's a word that has the translations in your own language. If it's translated in that language, you could find it and post it on this site. So this was at Sawati, and if you don't, often you may not know who the speaker is, but this does mention who is interacting here. Sometimes you just see something that says the Buddha is addressing the monks, and it'll just start out mendicants or monks or bhikkhus, depending on who's translating it. And but in this case, this is a one-on-one encounter, which is really lovely. And so Sariputta goes up to the Buddha and bows and he sits down to one side and says, "Dear, sir, venerable sir, good friends, companions, and associates are the whole of the spiritual life." So sometimes we see it in the suttas, mendicant will have some reflection that comes up in their mind, and then they go to the Buddha and they make a statement. And you see this also in the Deva Samyutta, where the Devas come up and they make a statement, and then the Buddha agrees in silence, or he makes a comment, or so that's a good statement, but I'll add to it. So it's kind of like checking your understanding with somebody else. And this, so they go to the Buddha, they go to the most esteemed, the person on the path here, well, during this time. And so the Buddha does agree. Good, Sariputta, good friends, companions, and associates are the whole of the spiritual life. And this is the Kalyana Mita. So this is it's this fact of having excellent friendship. So this this is a good friend state, is how it's translated there too. The state of good friendship. So this adds I'm going to understanding to the next one we'll look at, the sutta that we'll look at next. It's the state of good friendship, of having good spiritual companionship. So that's, see if I can. Okay, close that. So a mendicant with good friends, companions, and associates can expect to develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. So when we have friends on the path, then this is a support for our development. But a true friend is someone who may be further along the path than we are, and they really should be. We should have some companions. We can have like companions that are, like we're walking side by side, but we also need those to lead the way or point the way or give us a map at least. So, and the beauty today is that we have the teachings, the translation of the teachings, and this is that all these people that are translating the suttas for us are giving us a map. And then also the people that have been working with the teachings for some period of time, they're, they've already done some trailblazing. It's like, there's the mountain there, and how do we get to the top, And so the path may be overgrown, and or maybe there, some even building of the trail now, but we depend on people who have walked the path before us, and also having faith that somebody, if there's a mountain and no one's been able to climb it, and everybody's died on the way, but you're going to say, oh, I don't think I want to climb that mountain. But if you say, that people have climbed that mountain, there's flags on the top of the mountain. People have gotten to the peak. It's possible to do it. And they're giving us the map, and they're telling us what provisions we need, and they're telling us what to look out for. So the provisions really is the Noble Eightfold Path, and the hindrances are what we really need, all the hazards on the way. So we can, a mendicant with good friends, companions, associates can expect to develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is Kalyanamita. This is for a monk or anyone having good friends. This is that word. So this is possessing good friends, having companions. Let's see, Kalyana, good associates, having good companions. So friends, companions, associates. And how does a mendicant with good friends develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path? It's when a mendicant, or just think of yourself as a mendicant or monk or a person on the path. It's when one develops right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right immersion, which rely on seclusion, fading away, cessation, ripening, ripen as letting go. So last week, we talked about the path factors in detail, and this is starting out with right view, samaditi. This is correct outlook, correct belief, having right view with correct outlook. So DT actually it's a like English. There's related to sight or seeing, having seen. It's dita, dita or something. Having seen. So it's actually having the direct experience ourselves. If I say I see, that means I understand. But it's just like if somebody points and says, "That's the trailhead," and then I say, "Oh, I see." I see the trailhead. So it's kind of you start to understand for yourself through your own experience. And the mundane right view is really having understanding of the Four Noble Truths. But we can start to understand dukkha and the cause of dukkha. These are very apparent. These are things that we can. It's like seeing the trailhead and seeing, okay, this is the right path, and having the map in your hand and say, yes. Oh, if you've been to on hikes and there's even like a map like of the trail there, so you have to understand suffering and its cause. And also last week I talked about how samaditi is related to understanding the wholesome or the skillful and the unwholesome or the unskillful, and really the karmic consequences of the wholesome and unwholesome. And it is related to the cause of suffering, because the unwholesome roots, also to understand the unwholesome roots and the wholesome roots. So unwholesome roots, greed, hate, and delusion, and the unskillful roots and the fires. They're sometimes called the three fires or the three unwholesome roots. And to understand there are opposites, which are the wholesome roots. So non-greed would be contentment. Non-hatred would be metta or loving kindness. And non-delusion would be wisdom. Wisdom or understanding, this ditthi. So it brings us back to the ditthi, the understanding, the knowing. So this gives way to all the other path factors, and the right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. You have to have right view. So These each are developed. It says here, Bhagavati is developed, and Viveka is a seclusion, and Nisitang, that's dependent on. See, this is nicely divided. Sometimes you click on this and you get a question mark if it's too long of a compound word. But here's a dependent on, seclusion or solitude, detachment, disengagement or independent. So there's physical seclusion, where we go off by ourselves, or we could just go to our room and spend some time in seclusion, studying the Dhamma, uh, meditating, reflecting on teachings. But this is also implying secluded from unwholesome states and secluded from the senses, going deeper and deeper inside this viveka. So there's a physical seclusion, and then there's a secluded from the senses and unwholesome states. And then ultimate seclusion is a nibbana, is a detachment from samsara. And then viraga is fading away of desire. So this again is a abandoning or letting go, but it's a fading away as we understand the path deeper and deeper, and have opportunity to experience happiness without dependency on the senses. Our desires, our greed is going to fade. We don't need to depend on the senses so much. I mean, we care for our bodies, but we're not driven by greed and hate. And this is nirodha, ending, cessation, termination, finishing of. And that so it's dependent on the cessation also of the unwholesome factors, but also just really turning away from samsara. So each one, and Wasaga is one of those compounds that there's a question mark there. So the lovely thing now is that you can go just, and there's this digital poly reader, and you see it'll give you, likely to give you the translation. So let's see what happens. There it is. And so this is, Wasaga is a relinquishment here. It's a compound word, developing into complete relinquishment, culminating in letting go, ripening in release. So these are various ways of translating these compound. Wasaga, you'll see, I can't click it and separate the two words, but you can see there's a, and then pari namin. So that would be developing or into, it's completing it, it's ripening it, it's culminating. Culminating might be the one single word that would be parinamim. It would probably be parinam me. They don't have the words separated here. But anyways, you can click on this and you'll get to it. Now let's see if I can get back. That's the tricky thing. If I can get back. Okay. Let's see what happens. There. Okay, so let me get out of screen share for a second. Okay. Yeah, when I navigate away, it's harder for me to get back to. Okay. So now we have so that's how a mendicant with good friends develops and cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path. And here's another way to understand how good friends are the whole of the spiritual life. And this is the Lord Buddha speaking. For by relying on me as a good friend, sentient beings who are liable to rebirth, old age, and death, to sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress, are freed from all these things. This is another way to understand how good friends are the whole of the spiritual life. So the Buddha has given us these teachings, it's beautiful. I mean, he spent 45 years after his awakening to walk all over northern India and Nepal, which it was uh, was where he spent the rest of his life, to share these teachings with others. And then all those people who recorded the teachings. Let me get out of screen share again. Okay. So all those people that shared the teachings along the way, that recorded the teaching, that memorized the teachings, that was an oral tradition for many years, for like 100 years, and then I think it started to be written down on palm leaves and laboriously. So not only memorized, but written down by hand and preserved as well as they could just by re. There was something in Afghanistan they discovered in the caves, in some caves, these urns that had the palm leaves, and they figured out that when the palm leaves started to get worn, they were so precious they didn't want to throw them out, so they put them in these urns and they put them away in this really dry condition so they wouldn't decay anymore. And so they're finding fragments of this handwritten palm leaves that were the discards, and they had to rewrite on new palm leaves. The so they kept current. It was like doing a reprint or something if all the old copies are are worn out. And then it was in China that they had the first printing, and this was of the sutras. And they laboriously carved, yeah, I think it was maybe wooden printing blocks, some kind of they made by hand these printing blocks. I'm not sure exactly what it was made out of. And so the first printing was because of the suttas, and so all the labor to memorization and the Theravada tradition, it was continued as an oral tradition, the memorized and passed down by memory. So now my memory isn't any good, so I can't memorize by heart the suttas and then I just relay it to you. So I have all the, I'm really reliant on all the work that all the translators did and people like Abate Sujato and Bhante Bodhi and Ajahn Tanisaro, making these teachings available. So these are our Kalyanamitas. uh, um, so it should be really inspiring, I think, for us to reflect on this, how much work it went into preserving these teachings, and how just in the ease of our own homes, it used to be that people had to walk for miles to hear the teaching. And just the ease of our own homes, we can open up a book, or we can go online and we can hear the teachings, or we can read the teachings. I know you must be doing some amount of work to be able to afford a home and electricity and the internet and whatever devices. I mean, that's your work that you're doing. And then, but the most important is our inner work, that we keep on the path, that we keep, and then we're good friends to other people, good friendship. So I'm going to get back to the share screen. I'm not sure what, yeah, we'll get back to another sutta. Here I have some extracts. There was a sutta just previous to this. Ananda came up to the Buddha, and do you see it here? Okay, let me see. Okay. There we have it. So uh, okay. So hopefully you can see this. I did something so I can't see you. This is a real learning curve. So you were able to see that, right? Yes. Okay. So I'll go back to the share again. All righty. Okay. So, Venerable Ananda, this is almost the exact, and this is called Half of the Holy Life. I didn't put the title here, but you can see it's just a previous sutta from, so I'm doing the reading out of order, but this is the previous sutta, and Ananda comes up to the Buddha and bows, and it says that Ananda was in seclusion, and he had this reflection, so he came in to share his reflection to the Buddha, and the Buddha said to him, "Sir, good friends, companions, and associates are half the spiritual life." This is the Upada Midam. And then the Buddha says, not so, Ananda. Ma Hewan. And ma is like a kind of expletive negation. It's like it emphasizes a negation, or it could be a command form. Sometimes it's translated as, I think Ajahn Tanisaro says, don't say that, Ananda. But it's just not so, that's not thus. Good friends and companions and associates are the whole of the spiritual life. So then the Buddha continues to talk about the spiritual life exactly like with the Venerable Sariputta. It's just the exact same sutta, except for the starting point is with Venerable Ananda coming up. And then I brought this in because the idea of the whole rather than the half. Why would it? Ananda had the idea that the half was his own effort, and the other half was all the spiritual companions, including the Buddha. But I think the Buddha was taking the self out of the equation. And also you could think of it as inclusive too. You're abandoning the sense of self, but you're also I'm going to stop the screen share for another second there, because I can't, for some reason now I don't have a view of you anymore. I don't know what happened. It's kind of strange just talking to a screen. So the whole, rather the thinking of, when you think of it, when they were talking before, that he was talking about the friendship itself. It's the state of companionship, the state of friendship. So it's that's a complete package. It's could think of it, including yourself in the package instead of me and them. But then there's a sense of self there too, which is a separate entity, separate self. So if you take the self out of the equation, I know there's some commentarial explanation of it too, but it's easier for me to think about it this way, that it's not excluding ourselves or not having the sense of self, one or the other, or both, something like that. So anyway, I think that the Lord Buddha had this love for Ananda, both for Ananda and for Sariputta. Sariputta was wise, and he would always said something that the Buddha approved. And often Ananda would, this shows a beautiful teacher-student relationship with Ananda, where he's like checking his understanding. Is this right? And then the Buddha says, no, actually, it's like this. Sometimes Ananda is spot on, and then after the Buddha's passing away, he became a respected teacher. So, and he was the Buddha's attendant. So this takes us to the next sutta. Let's see how we're doing with time. I'm going to share this screen again. Let's see. So now we have Megha Sutta, and I love this sutta because Megha was an attendant, and I imagine he was a young monk, and he wanted to go away in seclusion after seeing this beautiful mango grove on alms round. And the Buddha said, no, don't go yet until there's another monk here, we're alone. And then Megha insists on going. He goes to the mango grove, and then he's overcome with greed, lust, it says, or of thoughts of hatred, thoughts of lust, thoughts of delusion. And he comes back and he's just astonished that this is happened. And then the Buddha is very patient with them, and he just says, he just starts giving him a teaching. So when here it says, for one whose freedom of mind is not fully mature, there are these 5 things. And then and the first thing that he mentions is that a monk or a person has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade. And then in the holy life. And a monk or anyone, a mendicant with good friends, companions, and associates can expect to be ethical. So we have those who are keeping either the monastic code if you're a monk, or their sila, their 5 precepts, or how many precepts you're keeping, or the fact that people are keeping more precepts than you are. This is an inspiration. And it's a support, because so many people are unethical these days. It seems like the norm, and that's very sad, because there are a lot of people who are generous, kind, and ethically principled. They keep a good ethics, good at least 5 precepts. And then a mendicant or a person with good friends, companions, and associates can expect to take part in talk about self-effacement that opens the heart. So this is just a really brief ellipsis of all the points, and they can expect to be energetic, expect to be wise. So this I have a little bit more detail about the wisdom. They have the wisdom of arising and passing away, which is noble, penetrative, and leads to complete ending of suffering. This is the 5th thing, that when the heart's release is not ripe, helps it ripen. These are the 5 things that when the heart's release is not ripe, helps it to ripen. So these are the 5 things what we can expect if we have good Kalyana mitas. They can expect that it supports their ethics, their sila. They can take part in talk on the Dhamma. And it can inspire our energy. And this is energetic to abandon unwholesome qualities and to develop wholesome qualities. And then the wisdom, really seeing cause and effect, really seeing really impermanence. We have the support so this is when the heart's release is not ripe, it helps it to ripen when we have these 5 things to help it develop, and it's dependent on the Noble Eightfold Path. So I'm just going to go through this one. Let me just go up to the top in case you didn't see. This is Udana, in the Udana 4.1. It's also in the Anguttara Nikaya. No, excuse me, not the Anguttara. Yeah, it's in the numerical discourses, the Anguttara Nikaya, in the 5s. It would be in the 5s, I think. So if you look up Meghiya in the Anguttara Nikaya, I'm not sure what, 4 something or other. I'm sorry I didn't get the reference, but it's in the Udana. If you have Sutta Central, you'll find the whole sutta. And this is in the Anguttara Nikaya, and this is in the 10s, 61. And the reason why I chose this is because it's talking about associating with true persons, a sapurisa. And this is who you actually want to have in your as a spiritual companion. This is ideal as a people that are true persons, is how this is Bhante Sujato's translation. And this is entitled Ignorance because it's a whole causal change of what's supporting ignorance. And then how do we deconstruct ignorance is starting with associating with true persons, the saparisa. So if we have, there's 10 factors, and I just started out with the faith, with the detail with this. It says, what is the fuel for faith? And aharo is it's aharo, or ahara is fuel or nutriment, and sada. And it's listening to the true teaching. So we're like in the last Sutta Meggiya, is being able to have talk or hear teachings on the Dhamma. This is the Saddhamma. And then I say that listening to true teaching is fueled by something. It is not unfueled. And that's here, aharo. I got the actual word for nutriment or fuel, as Bhante Sujato translates it. And what is the fuel for listening to true teachings? You should say associating with true persons. That's the saparisa. And this is the causal chain to support knowledge and freedom, as opposed to ignorance. So I just took the positive factors here. Okay, thus associating with good persons, this is Bhante Bodhi's translation, becoming full, fills up hearing good Dhamma. Hearing the good Dhamma, becoming full, fills up faith. So the more we hear the teachings, the more we're inspired by, the more our sada, our trust, our sada, confidence is another way it's translated. Faith is like kind of seems energetic, like it's and being inspired. Sada, faith becoming full, fills up careful attention. And careful attention becoming full fills up mindfulness and clear comprehension. This is, Bhante Sujato says, rational attention for yoniso manasikara. That's Bhante Bodhi's translation of careful attention. Mindfulness and clear comprehension becoming full fills up, fill up restraint of the sense faculties. So the sati sampajanya. This is mindfulness and situational awareness. Again, that's Bhante Sujato's. Restraint of the sense faculties becoming full fills up the three kinds of good conduct. This is conduct through body, speech, and mind. So this is really interesting because it's like our sila. This is our sila. And when we guard our mind from unwholesome states, it's another way to understand indriya samvara. Is that we're protecting our mind from grief. For not that we should put blinders on, but when we see things or hear things or have tactile sensation, it doesn't bring up greed or hatred or delusion. This is, we're protecting our minds, or we see, oh, there's greed arising, oh, there's anger arising because of contact. That's the actual meaning of not just avoiding. It's not avoiding closing your eyes or closing your ears. It's protecting the mind from unwholesome states. So then there's three kinds of good conduct through body, speech, and mind, becoming fill up the four establishments of mindfulness. So this is the Sucharitani, the three kinds of good conduct. So isn't this surprising? That through body, speech, and mind, wholesome behavior supports the satipatthana, the chattaro satipatthana. It's like, oh, yes, our sila is extremely important. If we are keeping our sila well, but it's also through body, speech, and mind. So we're purifying our mind. We're abandoning the hindrances is one of the aspects of this. Or we have to keep through speech and bodily action, we keep our sila well, we keep our ethical conduct well. And then this supports the mind being pure. And then we're able to practice the satipatthana, otherwise we're not. This is what it's saying here. And it's a gradual path, so each are filling up the other and the other and the other. So we're so then the four established of mindfulness are supported by three kinds of good conduct. The four establishments of mindfulness becoming full fill up the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. Chattaro satipatthana. This is why good learning the vocabulary is really good. If you know the Pali word, then you don't have to worry about so many different translations. So then the 7 awakening factors, satta bojjhanga, becoming full, fill up true knowledge and liberation. Thus, there is the nutriment for true knowledge and liberation. And thus, in this way, they become full. So this is Vijja Vimutti, the knowledge and liberation. And this is what I was saying, the ignorance is the reason why this sutta is called ignorance is because it starts out how ignorance is nourished. The ignorance is there, and then we perpetuate it. And it is so ignorance has a nutriment, and the nutriment for ignorance is the 5 hindrances. So if we work at abandoning the 5 hindrances, but this has a whole causal chain, which I haven't included in this document that I put together. I have another document, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information. But getting back to the point that I was trying to make with the sutta is associating with good persons is this starting point for the development of the path. So we could hear the Dhamma, and it goes through that whole chain again. So I encourage you to look at these suttas for yourself. I've spoken about both Meghiya. There's Meghiya and this sutta on ignorance, AN 1061. I'm going to stop the screen share here. So I encourage you to just delve into these suttas. And for me, one sutta leads to another. I love Bhante Bodhi's the publication, the hard copy of the suttas, the wisdom publication, because he's of these extensive notes. And then you see he relates this one sutta to another as what happens. And you can see that the suttas are something like poetry, and that you have to know sometimes the background to really understand, like what's being referred to. And with the Samyutta Nikaya, I would encourage just like reading a whole section, because it starts to make more and more sense. Like or you just read the last particular, the great book. I think it's a book 5 in the Samyutta Nikaya, the collection. It has Bodhipakya Dhammas, the 37 factors for awakening. So this is like the 4 satipatthanas, the 4 iddhipadas, the 4 right strivings, the 5 spiritual faculties, and the 5 strengths, and then I think it jumps to 7. Then the 7 awakening factors, and then the Noble Eightfold Path, the Magga. So it has all of those. And so if you just study the last book, the great book, starting with number 45 onward, this is a great teaching. And if you're fortunate enough to have a hard copy, Bhante Bodhi's, I don't know, maybe on digital as well. I don't have a digital copy. I'll have to ask those who have, but it may be having the introduction to each section, and he gives a introduction, and the notes are extremely helpful. Bhante Sujato has also done some of his own notes. You can get when you go into, like I was showing you at the top, there's that eye, and you go into views, then you can get the notes, his annotations. So all this, instead of a study seeming tedious, I think if you really, it's like walking the path. If you're a hiker, and it's just you just love being out there, and you just love to explore, and you get excited because someone has described something to you, and you've finally gotten to that point. You said, when you're walking along the path, and then you look to the left, and then you'll see Mount Rainier, something like that. And then you're, yes, there it is. There's the signpost there. I can see it in the distance. And so you get very excited. And so the study is kind of like that, where you do a certain amount of study, and then you're meditating, or you're doing this internal work, and you go, oh, this is what they were talking about. This is our actual walking, our practice, in daily life and on the cushion. It's like, oh, I've been working with this for a while, and I've been working at abandoning the hindrances for a while, and oh, this is what it's like when they've really reduced. How does that feel when I've really reduced anger? Oh, things like that. So I offered this for your reflection. And those who have been tuning in either by YouTube or live might notice there's something different in the background here. So someone, a dear friend, friends have, it's a couple, have offered this beautiful Buddha Rupa. We've had this other one that other friends offered earlier, but we can use the Buddha's image, his Rupa, as an inspiration. This one here is a samadhi, a samadhi Rupa. He's in the samadhi. His hands are on his. I think both of these are samadhi. And then there's a teaching mudra. I think it's like this, and then the fearless one is like this. So you can use images for inspiring, just reflecting on how people, how this being before us has been so generous to offer these teachings to us, and all the people that in the past that have passed this down to us, and all the people today that are doing the work to make this teaching available to us. So I offer this all for your reflection, and we can we'll have a few minutes afterwards. Are we up to the hour? We could still meet afterwards if you like. And we'll just end with paying homage to the Buddha. If you have a rupa, or you wish to uh, pay respects to. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutam Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangham Namami. So thank you all. I'm going to go off live stream, and then